Hey everyone, welcome to the Anderson Bros Outdoors. I'm Jake, and today we're going to do the next installment of the Brazin scale Frontline chassis VRD / Vanquish / whatever you want to call it build, Project Murica. So stay tuned. Hey everyone, welcome back. As I said, my name is Jake, and today we're going to do the next installment of the Brazin scale Frontline. If you've been following the series, you know all about it. If not, I'll give you a little bit of history on this here project. It is a Brazin scale Frontline chassis. It is a VRD carbon kit, and it is hardcore links. Where we left off last time, I had just received the links, and I had not received the drive shafts, so we were using some plastic drive shafts that were kind of cobbled together. Some updates between now and then. I'll have some footage rolling here. We did take it out. We had the green Hulk body on it with a custom 3D printed bed that I made, and we took it out. We ran some gates, as you can see. Here's gate one. Touch that one. I have to make that one a little wider too. Move that out there like that. Might be a little too tough. Yeah, see, smash that one too. It actually did really well. I was very happy with the performance. I was a little concerned initially with running the chassis mounted servo with the winch up front here. I didn't really know how it was going to act without having all of the weight on the axle, but it actually did really well. Realistically, if you were to buy the VRD carbon kit and the Frontline chassis with the hardcore links and run the BTA kit and then run this transmission with the plastic skid, you could get the servo behind the axle with no issues. As you can see, it would reside right here, and you would have a certified line killer. This is more for Sorrca points, Sorrca competitions. I will actually do another build with the same exact chassis and rails in the very near future that will be more dedicated to non-Sorrca standard. For the time being, we are going to continue down this route with this truck. Some things that I've added since the last video: we did get the fan mount added, so I made a radiator shroud for the front and I added a fan. The reason I did that is because we have the ESC sandwiched between these two servos, and with the heat generated by the servos and the ESC combined, I thought it was a good idea to have a fan up front. This fan produces a lot of CFM and it is very low noise. As you can notice though, I did actually hit it and I broke it. The bumper was all the way forward. The bumper's in a different position at this point. We'll go over that in a minute. Other than that, we did get the cut-to-length drive shafts. So these are Amazon specials. There is a lot of finesse with these drive shafts. When you cut them, they don't really want to fit back in. U-joint part, I guess, is what you call it, the yoke. They don't really want to fit back into the yoke, and so it's kind of a pain. I spent probably an hour cutting them to length, and you want to measure twice, cut once, because the moment that you get them together, you're not getting them apart. So be very sure that that's exactly the length that you want, because I did have to do some finagling on the front drive shaft to get it to work. We are running a 2340 kV motor with a Rhino 40 amp ESC. Both servos are direct power, so we don't really need a Beck, which is why we don't have one on here. The Beck on the 40 amp is good enough to power the receiver, and that's really all we need. Looking at the wiring, so the wiring is tucked up nice and neat. It's all packed up with the ESC. We have the receiver that sits on top of the winch, and then the on and off switch is right here behind the steering servo, so I can come up from behind and turn it on and off as needed. Now, some of the other changes that I've made since the last video are The rear shocks, I did have the SCX10 Pro shocks on the rear. They were a touch too long, so I did go with some 2660s and the soft mini T spring for the rear shocks. For whatever reason, I've tried many different lengths and shock spring combinations on this truck. I probably spent 4 hours testing it one day, side hilling, steep inclines, things of that nature. And this is really where I've landed. I think realistically, these 2660s are the perfect length for the rear. They give just enough articulation to be helpful, but not enough articulation to be unpredictable. Front, I did end up moving the shock position in the front, and I moved it all the way back to lower the chassis some more onto the front axle. The rear shock position is actually in the middle on the, I believe, the top hole here. I'm not sure why it's in the front. I've been doing some body adjustments. I've been moving the rear shocks around. I will likely have to put some heavier springs on the rear because we've been working on the next big installment for this series, and that is this Toyota Mojave Hilux Trailfinder 2-body, whatever you want to call it. This looks terrible, but this is the first attempt at bobbing and pinching a hard body. Now, right off the bat, I'm going to tell you that it looks terrible. That's all there is to say. However, for the first attempt, I am very, very pleased with how it's turned out so far. So I did pull 3/4 of an inch out of the front. I used a hacksaw and I sawed up the line, the hood line up the side, and I measured from the line 3/4 of an inch in, and I taped it at an angle to the back end of the hood corner, I guess. And I cut it up that way, and it cut out a triangle. I then used a torch, and that is where I really messed up. I highly recommend using a heat gun. So the torch worked really well, but as you can see, it also deformed the plastic, not only there, but in other areas as well. So you can see, like right here, it looks like we hit something already, which is completely fine. It adds character to the body, so it simulates a real truck. Not a huge deal there. The front turned out fantastic. I did end up getting very fortunate, and I was able to cut out, I believe, 2 of these center sections and have the front grille sit in here with no issues, and it still looks relatively stock. Overall, I'm really happy with how the front part of it turned out. The rear part was a bit more challenging, and I'm not actually done with the body yet. The rear was challenging because not only did we have to pinch it, but we also had to bob the bed, and I didn't cut off enough of the rear or bob it enough. I cut off 1.25 inches of the rear, and I needed to cut off 1.5 inches. So if you plan on making a 12.3 wheelbase Hilux body, you'll want to cut off 1.5 inches of the section and then pull the tailgate in. I followed a video on how to do this. I'll leave the link in the description below. Once the bed was bobbed, I glued the back on, and it was all one square piece. And then once the glue was set, I then cut out 2 inches of the middle and I pushed it in. Again, you're going to need a lot of heat on the sides, the inside and the outside, so use a heat gun. Be cautious because you can see there are almost melted plastic everywhere. So I just used some J Concepts tire glue to get everything positioned the way I wanted it. Once it was positioned in place, I then went to my local O'Reilly's and got a 3M resin repair kit with fiberglass. And what I did with that is I then put some fiberglass where the joints were and then the resin. And I think it turned out pretty good. I'm still not done sanding it, obviously, but you can see here where the fiberglass and the resin are. And I'm hoping that it will withstand, you know, big drops and things of that nature. Here's an example. So I haven't cleaned this fiberglass up yet, or the resin, but it is extremely hard, and it feels pretty durable. One of the other things that we did is we obviously printed an interior for it. I purchased this interior off of Cuts 3D. I'll leave the link in the description below. This is not my design. It is somebody else's design. I am not as happy with the space between the doors and the back. So you can see here there is a space that you can see through. along each door and then also along the back here. I don't know if you can see that or not, maybe like this. So I'm gonna have to fill that with something because that is not legal in Sorrca rules. One of the other things that you can see here is we have plenty of room. So I think what I'm looking at is I'll probably cut the body right here. I'll cut this portion of the body off where the bottom side of this blue tape so I can get it on the truck. So right now, the only way to get it on the truck is it has to go over the sliders. We still have visibility of the bumper in the front, and then the rear bumper, I actually designed and 3D printed some new bumper mounts, and I have a friend that's gonna actually cut them out of metal with a laser. So once they're cut out of metal with the laser, I will weld this bumper in there and I'll have essentially like a drop bumper for it. It looks really good sitting in there, so you can see it's perfect. The only downside at this point is I need to finish the body. I'm going to have to either hack up these sliders, rebend them, or design some in 3D modeling and print them out. The only reason I don't really want to design some in 3D modeling and print them out is because you get less Sorrca points for plastic sliders versus metal. So what I'm thinking is I'll get another set of these stock sliders and I'll try and bend them to where they are more narrow and the tab is longer, so I can put some more screw holes in the side of the body after it's been cut and be able to mount it that way instead of having protrusions in the top. The front of the truck is done for the most part. The interior is almost done. The dash is printing right now, as you can see. The rear is going to be the most challenging part, is getting the bed back in there or the bed floor back in there, and then figuring out what to do to cover up the shock mounts. I get asked a lot locally why I'm doing this. First of all, this is a really cool project. The first time I'm actually doing a hard body in terms of all of this work to it, and it's a great experience. Now, I don't recommend it if you have very little patience, and I don't recommend it if you want it done today, because this has been a multi-day project, just the body, and it does require a lot of patience. The good news is that if you mess up the cab or the bed, it's like $40 to replace both, shipped to your door. It's not a huge deal if you need to redo it. Circling back to the main reason why I'm doing this, because I want a really cool trail truck. I think that this will turn out to be a really, really, really cool truck that I can video, get some shorts, some TikToks, whatevers, and create some footage with it. And it'll be an all-around fun truck to drive. I'm really liking scale, and I really love performance. Mixing those two, and this is what you get. Now, there's some downsides to this, and if you look at a lot of the local comps in my area, a prime example is Apex that just happened in Disney, Oklahoma, is roughly 4 hours away from me. They didn't actually go by Sorrca rules. They went by a completely different set of rules. And there's a reason for that. So one of the primary reasons that people don't like to follow Sorrca rules is because this is not a very capable truck. Personally, I like to go out and I like to do really, really hard technical stuff that shouldn't be possible. Well, I'm not gonna do that in this truck, and here's why. The body alone, the way that it sits, almost weighs a pound. That is huge. My green Hulk body and the 3D printed bed, they weigh less than a quarter pound combined. And I'm not even finished. This will probably be a pound to a pound and a half when it's all said and done, with the person and the dash and the bed and all of the other scale accessories that need to go in here. It makes it really hard to actually go compete because you have like an 8-pound truck that has to be there to be legal. You don't necessarily have to have an 8-pound truck. You can have a truck like in the footage that you see here, but you're going to be missing out on 40 points potentially. What does that mean? Specifically in Sorrca rules, when you go do a competition, you get points for each course that you do. Typically, you'll have 2 or 3 or 4 courses per competition in your class. The way that the competition is scored is much like golf. You want the lowest number possible. If I were to take a negative 40-point truck out, a fully Sorrca legal truck, versus a truck that has, we'll say, 0 points, this truck has the option to hit 4 gates and have the same exact score as the other truck and not hit any gates. Realistically, there's some give and take there. Do you need to have a 40-point truck? Probably not. The points are there to make up the difference between the trucks. So if you have a super capable truck, you get 0 points. And if you have a medium capable truck, like this will be, you have a negative 40. 9 times out of 10, the more capable truck is going to use a winch every time this truck does. It's really hard to justify one way or the other, and it's really all about how you prefer your truck to look and drive. It's give and take. That's the entire purpose of the Sorrca rules, is to make it fair for everyone, which is completely understandable. The downside there, though, is that you have a very heavy truck that's not nearly as capable as the less scale trucks, if you will. The local competitions that I hold, the TABO Cash Days, they have a very, very thin or very easy set of rules to follow. For one, it makes it allowable for other people or a majority of people to come compete. They don't have to have this really regulated truck. They can come compete with a few things and have a good time. Whereas, something like this, you're spending potentially thousands of dollars to make it comp legal. And a lot of people just don't have that kind of money to waste on a hobby. With that being said, future plans for this, or next video plans, I'm hoping to have the dash completed. I'm hoping to have the bed done. Hopefully we'll have the metal brackets for the rear so we can have the bumpers finished. I do need to order another rod to make this a little longer so it does span the entire length of the front. And then I'm going to paint it. It will obviously be a red, white, and blue truck because it's Project Murica. We will see how that turns out. Fantastic progress, fantastic truck. Links for everything is in the description below. Feel free to check that out. I think that's going to do it for this video. So we appreciate you making it this far. Feel free to throw us a like, subscribe to the channel, and we hope you have a great day.